You see, but Jesus was trying to help the disciples realize that his coming was the inauguration of his kingdom, not the consummation of it. You see, his first coming was the inauguration of his kingdom, not the consummation of it. You see, his coming hadn't been the end of the story. You see, it was actually the beginning of the end. You see, by the time we get to chapter 24, this reality is starting to come into view for the disciples. And in our passage this morning, as Jesus and the disciples are walking out of Jerusalem with Jesus just days before he would be arrested and crucified, the disciples come to Jesus and they ask him some really important questions. See, the disciples, they want to know about the end. They want to know, they're thinking, well, this isn't the end of the story. We know this isn't the end. So what is the end of the story? They want to know what's next. They want to know what can they expect and when can they expect it and how will they know when the end is getting near. And I think we all have questions like that. We want to know about the future. We want to know what's next. Every night my kids at bedtime are kind of like that Chinese lady at the Chinese drive-thru in the classic film, Dude, Where's My Car, right? They're ordering, and then I finally have to be like, no, and then, no more. I don't know what we're doing 6 weeks from now, right? We're going to go to bed and we're going to wake up and that's all I know, okay? You see, we want to know what's next. My kids want to know what's next. We all want to know what's next, whether that we want to know out of curiosity or fear or uncertainty, or like my wife so she can plan the calendar about a month and a half and a year out in advance. You see, we're all curious about it. But as we'll see this morning, Jesus doesn't really give us the answers that we're looking for. He doesn't really give us the answers that we want to know oftentimes. He gives us some details, but it's far from a clear picture. And he gives us a timeline of sorts, but it's kind of like a stock chart in lifetime view, but the font's in wingdings, right? It's kind of hard to like just pin down the precise details, right? It's certainly not an itemized hour-by-hour itinerary. But while Jesus doesn't tell the disciples, or us for that matter, all that we want to know about the end of the story, you see, what he does do is he tells us all we need to know. He says he tells us everything we need to know to wait for the end well. He gives us everything we need to know to be prepared for his kingly return and for the consummation of his kingdom. You see, and so as we study this morning, a passage that I'll just shoot straight with you is rather confusing and is hard to understand, one of the most difficult, challenging passages in all the Bible, a chapter where Jesus talks about the end of the world and his triumphant return. My goal, I'm just going to head you off at the pass, is not to answer all of your questions about the end times or to predict a date at which you can plan your retirement funds until. Instead, what I want to do this morning is to help you see the big picture of what Jesus is trying to help these disciples see. What I want you to do is I want you to help you to see what Jesus was trying to cause his disciples to get, to sink into their heads, into their hearts about his impending return. And it is this. You see, that although the end might be uncertain and unclear to them, it was not to him. It was crystal clear to him that although things were not going to go the way they'd expected or the way that they wanted, they could still trust that he was in absolute, unquestionable control. And that although he had come the first time in humility and suffering as the servant who would lay down his life for his people, he was indeed coming again, but this time it would be in power, as the just judge of all people who is coming to rule and to reign victoriously forever. You see, what Jesus wanted those first disciples and for you and I as his followers today is for our eyes to be fixed on him, the author of the story, the king of the kingdom, who we can trust implicitly and hope in confidently. You see, when our hope and our trust is set on him and his word, you see the good news that it changes everything about our lives on that day, but it also changes everything on our lives every day until that one as well.